Thank you, Hein, and thank you to the executive of ASMS. Wednesday night I was told I was standing a bit far away from the microphone. Am I okay this time? Good, good. I'm Harley Aish, I'm the new chair of MAS. I'm a GP in South Auckland. For those of you who weren't there on Wednesday night, I must inform you I'm not good at telling jokes. That was Richard's forte, not mine. So I'll just get on with business. As you know, MAS was formed by doctors 96 years ago in Napier. The medical profession is the DNA of our organisation. We've expanded a bit. We have dentists, vets, accountants, lawyers, architects, engineers, but the medical profession is still in our heart. If you were one of the people who responded to the Consumer Insurance Survey, thank you very much for voting us. We got the People's Choice Award in 2016 and 17, so we're really proud of that. Right. I hope a lot of you had a chance to attend some of our MAS talks that we had around the country. It's an opportunity for us to have speakers of awesome calibre to challenge us, to make us think about different things. And those topics are chosen by you, our members. Sorry, a little sidebar. Some of you may not be members of MAS, but I hope you don't mind us referring to you all as our members. This year, our speakers talked about change and disruption and the growth of worldwide of businesses looking to give back to their communities. Purpose-driven business is becoming the norm, and a lot of businesses talk about having a greater purpose than just profit. So some people have coined the term corporate philanthropy, and this is growing in the range of different causes that businesses are supporting: social enterprise and increased research into issues affecting the physical and mental health of our communities. We would like to think there's a good alignment between some of these issues and the values of you, our members, and the professions you belong to. And we think that we as MAS, we want to be aligned with those values that you have. As I said before, MAS is 96 years old. We're looking to the next century of our organisation, and what's going to be different for us. So in forums like this, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk with a big group of you from all over the country. We've got a question and answer session at the end of this little slot. So write down your questions. We want to take a sounding of your views. We're going to present some ideas, and we want to get your feedback, what you think about it. We've been working on this a while now, and we've had one particular option that we think might make a really big contribution to the purpose that we end up supporting. I'll shortly ask Martin Stokes, our CEO, to take you through some of the detail. But before that, we've made a little video, and that can probably say a lot more and a lot better than me.
In 1921, a group of doctors decided that they could form a cooperative insurance company that would be able to provide them with access to insurance coverage that wasn't available. Challenges over the decades, the Napier earthquake almost brought the whole venture really to a shuddering halt. We're solidly grounded in a legacy that sees us some 95, 96 years on, having established an extraordinary relationship with our members, one built on trust, and one that I think allows us to sort of proceed with some confidence into the future.
You know, having had various things insured with them since I was a medical student, they are a good company to deal with because for the most part they kind of trust you. You know, their default position is that you're a reasonable person, whereas that's not always the way that all insurance companies behave.
You're not a number, you're a person. It's funny because when you have a family, your world sort of changes in two ways. It sort of gets smaller and it sort of gets bigger as well. And the way it gets bigger is that you now focus on the future. I've got to make everything good for now, but I've also got a plan for the future when I'm not around.
My family as such is my wife, my 3 children, all grown up, really conscious that the world they're moving into ain't as easy as the world Jacqueline and I had.
Well, the professionals who are members at MAS already have a profound positive impact on New Zealand.
You know, it sounds trite, but that's what we do. We do what we do to help others.
When a patient has a significant trauma, they come back to clinic just looking like a different person in their normal clothes, not in a hospital gown. That's the most rewarding.
I would describe MAS members as dedicated, hardworking, well-educated, with, I guess, quite a good acute sense of what the greater good is.
You know, if you look at the top 10%, you sort of imagine you allocated people floors on the basis of their wealth. Top 1% will get the top 2 floors, and basically the bottom 50% share half the bottom floor.
I mean, it's been shown time and time again that Māori have, you know, less access to pretty much every medical resource that's available. So as an end result, shorter lifespan. It makes you feel angry, sad, disappointed. I'm in a position where I can, you know, provide some influence.
I would like us to be able to deliver more to people for less cost to us as a society.
For a sustainable future, it's really important that we're looking at accessibility to justice.
The mental health sector is extremely underfunded, and that's an area that I really am looking forward to seeing you know, lift its game. Well, the government needs to do more in terms of funding those areas, but corporates can have a part to play as well.
I spend a lot of time outdoors, particularly in the ocean. Whenever you're out there, you have the opportunity to see some amazing things, but you know, on the same dive you'll see plastic bags and straws floating past you, and the little plastic rings from six-packs, and yeah, who knows if all those fish are still going to be around for our grandkids.
And thinking about my girls as they, you know, go about their adult lives, have children of their own, and what the world is going to look like for their children and their children's children.
There used to be a saying, never leave a place worse off than when you found it. I can't put my hand on the heart and say my generation's done that.
We're moving from saying that the purpose of the organisation is largely about what we provide you on a one-to-one basis, moving to add to that and say that actually collectively we can also have a purpose that's beyond that, an extended purpose, create some genuine and positive change within the communities that we operate in, that we live within.
Things like equality and all that are massive in this modern world for me. Obviously we've confronted by things like climate change and all that, and you know, we're talking about maybe starting a family and that. You want to bring kids into a world that you're proud of.
It's our members' money, and we look after it. That's our job. And a lot of our members have stated they want us to be doing more good things.
It's not a massive change at all. There are big issues that need to be dealt with. Our members are trying to deal with those issues all the time for the greater good of community. If we can just align with that and help a bit in that space, then yeah, it's very good.
I think it's a great idea that MAS are looking at branching out and contributing to the community as a whole. You know, we do have limited resources otherwise, and if organisations who can do something are doing something, and allows us, you know, to do more.
The days of corporations looking inwards and looking to just make a profit for their shareholders without being a responsible corporate citizen, I mean, those days are gone.
So what won't change is our commitment to providing the best possible service and products we can to our members. What we're wanting to do in addition to that is create a fund that we can draw down on to support initiatives, and we think it makes sense that they are initiatives in the health education and research space, which we think ultimately can help improve the communities that we're living in. Out of the organisation that's grown from the 96 years of your support and your loyalty, we're now in a position to, in the next century, actually go beyond that and have an incredibly meaningful contribution.
So as you heard from Harley and you've seen in the video, we think that we have a role to play working collectively with our members towards something that will be greater than the sum of the parts. So we've already changed the way we invest. For those of you who are members, and hopefully you have your superannuation funds with us, you'll know that we recently moved towards screening in a socially responsible way that sees us exiting from exposure to things like fossil fuels, amongst other things. But we think there's a lot more we can do. That's all about what we're out of, which is fine, but that really is almost table stakes for being serious about the sort of contribution that an organisation like MAS can make to a broader community. So that's really what it is we want to introduce you to today, what that might look like, and by no means is that a fully formed idea. This is very much about wanting to engage, as Harley said, with the broader community of members, get your thoughts, your input, so that in time we can get a sense of whether you do support this, because that's critical. So a recent report by JB Ware, and we had one of JB Ware's people at our MAS Talk sessions, for those who went to them, talking about corporate philanthropy. It noted really the particular role that businesses can play in the early stages of funding for health, research, education, and particularly through philanthropy. Now, there are too many doing charities in New Zealand. Unbelievably, there's one charity for every 157 people in this country. We have one of the highest charity to people per capita ratios in the world. But whilst that sounds great, most of those charities are doing charities, and there really is an emerging gap, a massive gap between the demands that those charities have for funding and the supply of funding to them. Now, mainstream funding sources like government, they acknowledge that gap, and they acknowledge the role that corporates have to play in getting things like the research-based initiatives, which can become startups, toward the point where they get mainstream funding. So we believe that MAS can make a significant difference in this area, and in particular, I think in the area of health and well-being. It makes sense given, as Harley said, our origins, the people who founded us, the people who still in the main make up the vast majority of the membership coming from health professions. We need to respect that and honour it in the sense that if we're going to have a purpose, it needs to be broadly in that thematic, in that health and well-being area. So there are a number of ways we could do that, but the one that's really emerged, and the one that I think sees us having the greatest impact of the lot, while still protecting the financial strength of MAS and the sustainability of the business, would see us setting up a charitable trust. So MAS is a mutual. It has a group of companies. Those companies pay tax quite a bit. GST, PAYE, FBT, income tax. What this arrangement would see is us setting up, as I said, a charitable trust. Now, we've had discussions in the last 12 months with both IRD and Charity Services, who are the key government organisations that you need to get them comfortable what you're proposing to do. And they've indicated support for the feasibility and merit of applying for charitable status on this basis. Now, the structure would see IRD giving MAS tax exemption on that income tax portion, which would then be used for the charitable purpose. So those funds would go to the charitable trust. Now, the funds would build up for use by the trust and being governed at trust level by a completely independent governance board. Now that board would then seek submissions from the public, from members, at the start of a funding cycle. And so we would envisage that a small number of significant health research projects would be ultimately selected for that funding. And the success metrics that we'd be looking at would be established and monitored potentially over multi-year funding projects. Now this wouldn't change MAS at all. As I said before, there are plenty of doing charities. We don't want to get involved in that. We want to support those who do the doing, do the research, do the education. We want to orientate towards being the funder, being the supporter. And that independent trust would be the mechanism for making that contribution, that significant contribution. I want to be sort of careful and am reluctant to sort of put numbers on this. But if you looked at our most recent financial result, you would be talking a number in the region of perhaps 3 million or more, to give you an idea of the materiality of it. But critically, and getting to the point here, we won't be able to do this without your support. We won't be able to do it without your support in the sense of you are the members and we want you to go along with us. And at some point we'll actually need your vote because we'll need to make some constitutional changes to make this happen. Hence, we're over time and at functions like this and in forums like this, sharing with you these ideas. These are not fully formed, but ultimately what we want through your questions and suggestions is to help inform what this ultimately would look like. So if we get the support and get the input of those of you who think this is a good idea, we think ultimately it'll be a much better outcome, and down the track we'll have a more significant contribution.